Hi guys, we're going to talk about the Renaissance today. Our speech will be divided into three parts. The first part is Renaissance, the cultural rebirth. The second one is the apex of art, and the final one is how Renaissance changed the world. Let's come to our first part, Renaissance, the cultural rebirth. The word Renaissance means to be reborn. It is used to describe an enormously important movement of cultural rebirth that began in Florence, Italy in the early 1300s. Gradually spread northward to the other European countries and finally ended around 1650. The Renaissance regarded as a cultural bridge between the Middle Ages and modern history and marked the beginning of the modern ages. The Renaissance was divided into three periods. The first period was the early Renaissance period from 14th century to 1490. Humanistic philosophy placed man at the center of things, and in the visual arts this led to a close study of the human body, a return to the nude, and leading on from this, a preoccupation with nature in all its forms. The High Renaissance period from 1490 to 1530. This is the golden age, perhaps the most creative era in the history of art. This set the standards in both fine art painting and sculpture for centuries to come. Famous artists from this period are Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo Buonarroti. The Mannerism period from 1530 to 16th century. Mannerist art include tension, emotionalism, strained poses, unusual effects of scale, lighting or perspective, vivid often lurid colors. One of the big changes in the Renaissance was in the basic way people thought about things. This new way of thinking was called humanism. In the Middle Ages, people thought that life was supposed to be hard. They grew up thinking that life was nothing but hard work and war. However, around 1300s, the people in Florence, Italy began to think differently about life. They studied the writings and works of the Greeks and the Romans and realized that earlier civilization had lived differently. Now people thought that life could be enjoyable and they could have comforts. They started to think that people should be educated and that things like art, music and science could make life better for everyone. There was a real change in the way people thought. The Black Death set the stage for Renaissance, when some historians argue that the Black Death caused people to question the church's emphasis on the afterlife and focus more on the present moment, which is an element of the Renaissance humanist philosophy.
In the Middle Ages, painting had almost only been religious. The growth of humanism influenced painters in Italy, and they began to paint portrait and classical themes. This was partly because of the appearance of rich merchant families who earned all the paintings. This era had four major changes. The first is oil stretched canvas, the second is perspective, the third is the use of light and shadow, and finally is realism and naturalism. About the oil and stretched canvas, this technique allowed painters to show textures and three-dimensional forms more accurately. Linear perspective used a vanishing point. It means all lines appear to converge at one point. It gives the painting depth. One trick used to accomplish this was blurring details as the object appeared further away. Renaissance artists studied perspective, or the differences in the way things look when they are close to something or far away. The artists painted in a way that showed these differences. As a result, their paintings seem to have depth. They show the use of light and shadow by using chiaroscuro. It means light or dark in Italian, and sfumato. It means areas blend into one another, no harsh outline. artists could show more rounded shapes in painting. About realism and naturalism, Renaissance art is more lifelike than in the art of the Middle Ages. For example, in medieval, the pictures had no expressions on faces, stiff and unrealistic poses, with the background symbolized the residence of heaven and the holy atmosphere of heaven. But in Renaissance, the pictures filled with emotion and expression. Naturalistic landscape of this world and saints live in the same world as ordinary people. Besides, Renaissance patrons wanted art that showed joy in human beauty and life's pleasure. For example, in medieval, the church forbids displaying the naked human body, but in Renaissance, like the Greeks and Romans, artists study anatomy to portray humans realistically. Three great masters, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael, dominated the period known as the High Renaissance, which lasted roughly from the early 1490s until the sack of Rome by the troops of the Holy Roman Emperors Charles V of Spain in 1527. Leonardo da Vinci was the ultimate Renaissance man for the breadth of his interest, talent, and his expression of humanist and classical values. Leonardo's best-known works, including the Mona Lisa from 1503 to 1505, the fresco The Last Supper from 1495 to 1498, and Vitruvius Man in 1490, showcase his unparalleled ability to portray light and shadow, as well as the physical relationship between figures, humans, animals, and objects alike, and the landscape around them. Michelangelo Buonarroti achieved greatness as a painter as well, notably with his giant fresco covering the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, completed over 4 years from 1508 to 1512, and depicting various scenes from Genesis. The best-known arts, including The Last Judgment from 1537 to 1541, and the creation of Adam in 1511. Raffaello Sanzio, the youngest of the three great High Renaissance masters, learned from both Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo Buonarroti. His paintings, most notably the School of Athens from 1508 to 1511, painted in the Vatican at the same time with Michelangelo was working on the Sistine Chapel, skillfully expressed the classical ideas of beauty, serenity, and harmony. Besides, the famous pictures of him including the Madonna de Granduca in 1505 and La Velata in 1515. The Renaissance changed the world in just about every way one could think of. It had a kind of snowball effect. Each new intellectual advance paved the way for further advancements. The printing press was developed in Europe by Johannes Gutenberg in 1440. It allowed papyrus, secular books, printed music, and more to be made in larger amounts and reach more people. However, Renaissance art did not limit itself to simply looking pretty. Behind it was a new intellectual discipline. Light and shadow was studied, perspective was developed, or in pursuit of new realism and a desire to capture the beauty of the world as it really was. The new kind of music was mainly developed in the Low Countries, and from around 1470, the music was printed and could send all over Europe. During the Renaissance period, the violin, the guitar, and keyboard instruments was invented. Other instruments used was the viol, early cello, and different pipes and flutes.
And the circumnavigate the Renaissance man did. Columbus discovered America. Ferdinand Magellan led an expedition to circumnavigate the globe. Even as the artists were creating a bold new realism, scientists were engaged in a revolution of their own. Copernicus and Galileo had developed an unprecedented understanding of our planet's place in the cosmos, proving that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Advances in chemistry also led to the rise of gunpowder. The seeds of the modern world were sowed and grew in the Renaissance, from circumnavigating the world to the discovery of the solar system. From the beauty of Michelangelo's David to the perfection of Leonardo's Mona Lisa, from the genius of Shakespeare to the daring of Luther and Erasmus, and via breathtaking advances in science and mathematics, man achieved new heights in this tumultuous period. The Renaissance changed the world. You might even say it created all of what we now know as modern life.